Hey, we're here at Specialized in Salt Lake City talking with Andrew Love, who's in charge of brand protection at Specialized. So, Andrew, I mean, the first question is, what is brand protection and why is it important?
Well, in the modern world right now, I mean, the internet is wonderful, but it allows all sorts of international-based criminals to do their thing with a high degree of anonymity. So brand protection across a lot of industries is trying to keep people safe from these criminals, and that can mean a whole bunch of different things. That could be knocking down fraudulent websites that are trying to do identity theft, and that can also mean what I do most of my time, I spend most of my time doing, which is the anti-counterfeit fight, which is a huge thing for companies across multiple industries and spectrums, whether it's apparel or auto parts or electronics. There's even large amounts of counterfeit food out there, if you can believe that. It's just absolutely crazy. Anything that people really want, they're counterfeit. Counterfeit seeds. I mean, that the back package says one thing and what's inside is other. Counterfeit farm is a huge issue, and of course in the cycling industry, it's a huge problem. And I think the key reason for that, and I want to say all cyclists out there, the reason it's a problem is the cycling industry is the ideal target. The core, the backbone of cycling industry is all these small businesses, all these mom and pop shops. My wife is in the veterinary industry. It's very similar. It's all these little businesses. Even Specialized, one of the quote unquote giants of the cycling industry, really isn't that big when you compare that to the pharma industry, when you compare to that to like what Apple or any of those huge companies are. So the cycling industry, due to its distributed nature and its small business nature, is the ideal target for counterfeiters because there aren't giant businesses that can really fight back effectively. And I'm very, very lucky at Specialized that Mike Senior takes this awfully seriously. He takes it awfully, awfully personally, as well as a lot of us do here. And he gives me the resources and the time I need to fight. So that's what I spent my time on doing.
So, I mean, most people can think of brand protection because you don't want stuff being sold that's fake because it can hurt your reputation, or you're obviously not making money on it. But I mean, from your perspective, why why is it important?
Well, the safety issue is a big thing. We spend a tremendous amount of time and energy engineering what we think are some of the best bikes in the world. And here's the other thing. We all ride these bikes ourselves. I ride a Specialized. My wife is on a Specialized. My kid is on a Specialized. My mom is on a Specialized. So this is very personal to us, and safety is very personal. So the engineering and the testing and the quality assurance is very, very important. When it comes to the counterfeits, they don't care. They're selling things just to foreigners they'll never meet, and since their businesses get knocked down so fast, they're not interested in repeat customers. So their quality is crud. They're pretty good at making things that look good on the outside, but internally, the ingredients, the engineering, and also the ride experience is really, really bad. And I hate to use words like evil, but when you start looking at the people who make the counterfeit helmets that are terrible and don't do any job of protecting your head, there were teams of people that did that, and that's just ethically, morally wrong in every single way. I know how hard our helmet team works. I know how deeply and seriously they take their jobs. I've talked to other helmet companies out there. It's the same thing. It's personal. We wear these helmets on our head. I've been racing 25 years. I've owned 8 helmets, and I've broken 3 of them, one of them catastrophically. If I had a counterfeit on my head, I'd probably be dead. So the counterfeits, and when you talk about brand protection, there's a whole lot of arguments. And yeah, there's an economic argument, absolutely. With apparel, that's what it is. But when you have other elements of the handlebars and the helmets and the frames, it's bad news. And I wish I could communicate that. And there's so many misconceptions among riders out there. I'll give you a couple of misconceptions. One, and this is the big one I hear all the time, it's all safe, it's out of the same 2 or 3 factories. That's not true at all. And the great data point that anyone can look at is look at the floor plans of the big cycling shows right now, especially the ones in Asia, the Taipei show and stuff. You'll see hundreds of little carbon fiber manufacturers that are out there. That's a concrete data point. There are all these little factories that are capable of making things. And by the way, those are the public-facing ones with enough size and staff to go to these big shows. There's a lot of pirate factories out there. There's also a lot of other industries that need carbon fiber parts. Like for example, some of the counterfeiters I've hunted also do motorcycle, like carbon fiber fairings and motorcycle parts. One of them did carbon fiber parts for sailing boats. So there's other industries where carbon's an issue that they, hey, they want to make some money in the cycling industry. Yeah, if I make a carbon fiber motorcycle muffler, I'll just make it a little smaller. I'll make a handlebar out of it. And some of these folks are fine, but some of them are really not fine and just want to pump stuff out and sell it on AliExpress or Alibaba or 1688 or DHgate and just dump it on foreigners and run the other way. And unfortunately, that has happened. I mean, there are legitimate companies out there making the blank frames, and I have no problem with the generic blank frames, and there's some companies that are perfectly safe. The problem for us as Western consumers, we have no way of identifying who are the legit ones, who are the pirate ones, and I've even seen cases of some of the pirate companies imitating some of the better known generic frame companies because they have some credibility. But the key thing when you get a Specialized is that we ride these things and we stand behind them ourselves. So the whole myth of it's all just 2 or 3 factories and everything's safe, baloney, absolute baloney. I've probably got about 30 fake bikes sitting in my desk over here. And I mean, a lot of them are just crap. I mean, things like when you bake up a carbon fiber bike, it's really hard to do right. And so sometimes, we don't get it right. And so the frame doesn't come out right, come out straight, and we don't put that out. We destroy that. That's part of our cost. We eat that. Counterfeiters, when the frame doesn't bake up straight, I'll just paint it up and send it out. So a lot of the counterfeit frames aren't straight. I mean, I've seen them where the wheels are like off like that. So what does that mean in practice? What does that mean in the real world? What that means in the real world is the stresses coming through the bike aren't straight. So they crack and they break and they fail. And I've got quite a few of them over there that have failed on riders. It's crazy because, outwardly they look like a Specialized. They don't have the ingredients, they don't have the engineering, and they don't have the safety. So if there's one thing I can hope people to take away from this is that there's so many myths and misconceptions out there. And ultimately, when it comes to your safety as you're flying down single track or you're in a pace line at 25 miles an hour or you hit that patch of gravel and you go over the handlebars, you want to trust what you've got. There's a lot of ways to die as a cyclist, and we all know that. Let's not have this be one of them. Let's control the risks that we can control. And again, so there's the economic argument of counterfeits, and then there's the moral one. And I think it's convincing stuff. And so that's why I'm inspired to do what I do, and I love what I do, but it's kind of heavy sometimes. And when I've talked to riders, like this counterfeit helmet right here, this guy crashed and walked away with a concussion. And he's very lucky because you can see in there that it doesn't have a roll cage in there. That's the problem with a lot of the counterfeits is they lack the internal roll cage. This looks great. It looks like a real Specialized, but it's not. And he was awfully lucky. And so this is also why law enforcement takes this really seriously. And the last thing I ever want to do is invoke law enforcement. I try to outreach to people with open hands first and say, hey, stop. But sometimes when they ignore you and keep opening new eBay accounts, you have to take the next step.
So as you just said, I mean, a lot of them it's hard to tell apart. And that helmet you just showed us, you showed me a real one and the fake one, and I picked the fake one as the real one. So what are the best practices that a consumer can follow to avoid being in that situation, given that just looking at it is probably not going to be able to for them to find out?
Well, that old thing about common sense matters a lot. And in the internet age, we all need to have common sense alerts going all the time for all sorts of reasons. So here's some common sense alerts for cycling. If it's like half of retail price, keep your eyes open. If it's an AliExpress, Alibaba, DHgate, 1688, all these things, red flag. I've never seen a real item there. Never. If you see someone selling some helmets on Craigslist or selling helmets on Facebook, not just one, but they have a stack, 15, pick your color. If you see someone selling piles of helmets or piles of bikes, counterfeits fly in flocks. That's the other thing. The fake Specialized always appears with fake Oakleys for some reason. I work with Oakley all the time. So, you have to use your common sense. And when you see this stuff and you're worried about authenticating your stuff, email me. I'm here to help. at brandsecurity@specialized.com. It comes right to me. If you think you might have a fake Specialized, I can help you. Now, as we spoke earlier about, I can't tell you all the ways I can't tell you all the ways to spot a fakes. I wish I could, but the counterfeiters are going to watch this video. And I would love to tell them what I really think about them. I'm not going to. I've gotten hate email from them before. If I said, here's exactly how, well, then they'd fix the problems. We are going to launch some consumer education soon. It's something we've been working on for a long time. Because, you know, I do want to empower customers as much as I can. But really, common sense, that's the thing people need. A real Specialized Evade in the U.S. costs $225. When you see them for $100, now maybe it's a used one. Someone said that's perfectly valid, all good. But if you're worried, email me, brandsecurity@specialized.com. I am here to help, and I love talking to riders. My first job here was customer service. Now I spend all my time staring at, evil stuff on Facebook and eBay and Alibaba. I miss talking to riders. I miss helping them, because really that's when it comes down to it. We're all cyclists. We all love being out there in the sun and the rain and, challenging ourselves. That's what it's about. And the counterfeits are just, anyway, I should stop. I'm kind of passionate about this.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, we're going to take a bit of a break now, and then you're going to show us some of the more frightening things that can happen with counterfeits. Okay. So what are we going to talk about first?
All right. So what we have here is we have a counterfeit Specialized Prevail. Again, this is not real. This is a fake. And this was part of a seizure from a guy selling these on eBay. So most of these come through Alibaba. This point happened to have come through eBay. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you replicate the helmet test. Meaning I want you to replicate this helmet being used in actual, imagine it's on your head and you are in the air and you're falling off your bike. And what I want you to do is jump on it and land with it with both feet. Okay? Just jump on it on the air and land with both feet. See that? So now, what the difference between this as the fake one and the real one is that the real one has a roll cage inside and absorbs the hit.
So it won't collapse completely.
No, it
like
won't.
This.
When you do that on a real one, it dents, it cracks, it makes a big noise, but it doesn't do that. Now the CPSC says that a hit over 300 Gs is fatal. On the CPSC test, this helmet transmits 900. You're dead. That's the test. But you can just see it, what it did. And this is why anti-counterfeit work matters. This is why consumers need to educate themselves, and this is why consumers need to trust their bike shops. When you're something like this, you got to go to your bike shop. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Okay, so next up.
Next up, we have a fake Peter Sagan Venge here, Venge Vias. It's amazing that this looks as good as it does. When you get close up to it, you'll see differences. But this is a counterfeit. This is not real. Now, a lot of people are going to look at this and they're going to say, oh, it's from the same factories. Baloney. It actually measures out differently. If you hold this up to an extra real one, it would look really different through here, different shapes and such. It's amazing how close they got. But the thing about these that's deadly, and again, is awful, are the handlebars. Now, this thing, again, we don't know what's going to happen here, but this feels like a noodle to me. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take this and just try to break it. See what happens.
And that wasn't, I wasn't using much pressure there.
No.
I wasn't reefing on it.
No.
Yeah.
So as an objective journalist, how does this make you feel about the generics and the fakes that are out there?
I mean, this is frightening. As I said, I could see myself using as much power in that if I was in a sprint and really pulling on it. I could use that much power. This wasn't something where I really had to reef on it. I was expecting I was going to have to push on it pretty hard.
Yeah, and to me, this is terrifying. And so when people out there say, oh, it's the same stuff as the real. So we put one of these in the Specialized torture test. And we have a torture test that's far beyond the standard, the standards that are for carbon handlebars. And our real one, I think the torture test simulated like decades and decades of riding. The real one lasted, I think it was like 35 hours, and the fake lasted 20 minutes. And you just broke that. And by the way, this was shipped a couple weeks ago by the bad guys.